Welcome on our weekly workshop, Traders Talk, here this Tuesday, August 8th, 8/8/23. Great to see all of our students and members alike here. We have Jith, Sid, Sam, Barbara, Carla, Jason, Kathleen, Lawrence, Patrick, Wayne, Grant, and all of us joining us inside our live trading room. Great to have all of you there. Great to have all of us back, perhaps joining us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc. Hey, if you're fancy with your phone right away, if you'd like to join us inside our live trading room after this workshop, just scan that QR code right with your phone, with your camera, get access for a week-long trial there. We look forward to having you, but for right now, we have a lot to digest here in our weekly workshop, Traders Talk. So with that said, here we are. Let's hop right to it. I want to go over a couple of different trades that students had requested from earlier, but more or less I'd asked right before I pressed record, hey, is there one stock? Is there a stock from the morning watch list that we had posted that is going to be of note for you? Like if you could take yourself back to 9:25 in the morning, 9:15 in the morning or so, right before the opening bell, and we had posted the morning watch list. I'm going to post that coming up here for all of us on a recording right now, or all of us on the stream. So this is actually the watch list that Fausto posted in the morning here, right before the opening bell. The pre-market watch list, I accidentally snipped right above it there, but this is the main morning watch list. So for students like Carla, Jason, Jith, Lawrence, Patrick, I'd ask them, hey, what stock were you most interested in following here right before the opening bell? Well, let's see what the answers were. Looks like a few of us were saying Silo. Honestly, it's a mixed bag. A lot of us were saying the Buru. A lot of us were saying the Tilray. And a lot of us were saying the Silo. We'll go with those three. So honestly, hey, let's go through all three of those to start. And what we'll look to do is really recap where the big money was trading at. Because our whole premise here at Cyber Trading University is to follow the big money. And we go through the same motions here in Traders Talk each and every week because, well, hey, you can't reinvent the wheel. We go through the same motions in class that we do each and every month, maybe going over different subtopics, but you can't reinvent the wheel. So here in Traders Talk, what we like to do is go back on pre-market, go back right before the opening bell and asking, well, where were the big levels? Where were the big iceberg levels? Where are the big levels from the day before, if those were relevant? Because if we're so focused on Buru, like Grant and Sid are saying, and if we're so focused on Silo, like Jith and Sid were saying from earlier, or Drug, or any of these others, like Carla, Barbara, Wayne are all saying here, then hey, we got time, right? If we're all at our desks at 8:30 in the morning, 8:45 in the morning, and that's really the latest that you should be at your desks by, right before the morning meeting. Well, from that point, you have about an hour's worth of, kind of researching and studying to see where these icebergs were. So this is easy to say, Drug right off the top here. This just dropped off as soon as the market opened up or within the first 10 or so minutes. But even here on this trade, we'll actually go over this one since it's on the screen. It's not one of the three I underlined right there, but it was on the list. So let's actually at least go over this one to begin. Drug popped at first in pre-market. What we'll look to do is kind of just go over book map here really quickly. Bear with me just for a split moment. There we go. Just get the easy version of book map out there, the CVP, the heat map, and that's it. So normally for a stock like this, we'd be inclined to follow the 50-cent levels, the whole number levels. So we're talking prices like $5, $5.50, $6. That's where the iceberg orders are assumed to be, typically at these 50-cent levels and whole numbers. Well, those are assumed, but it does look like there actually was a pretty big iceberg order early in pre-market at 583, 584 or so. Bear with me for a quick moment, folks, because actually just earlier today, we had made this call out live inside our live trading room just at 8:42 in the morning, kind of just showing here the chat, the dialogue that we like to make to our students here. At 8:42 in the morning, I was writing, Drug has a 13,000 share iceberg at 583. Well, it showed it right there on level 4. It was out there since 8:23 in the morning. I made that call out at 8:42. It was starting to pop back up. So I said, all right, well, hey, we got this iceberg here. It's testing. And this is all pre-market trading, mind you. It broke above it here. So this could have been a great opportunity to look for a pop much higher. Well, if we're expecting a big move and we're not getting a big move, it's easy to say here, but we're going to be getting a big move just the opposite direction. So this was all before the market opened up even, right? All right, well, as far as the direction of this trade right before the market opened up, it's not necessarily upward. It's more like flat. It was dropping off going into 9 a.m. So you can't necessarily say there's a ton of buying pressure on this trade right before the opening bell. If it could re-break above 583 here, if there could be more buying above that 583, then there's a chance. But otherwise, though, let's see, the first few minutes, this stock also, I want to mention, the stock had a huge spread early in pre-market. We're talking like 8 cents, 10 cents at times here even. So based off how illiquid it was, I wasn't necessarily a big fan of this before the open. It wasn't one of my main 3 or 4 myself. Obviously, it was active enough to be on the list. I would have put it on the list too. But hey, what happened to 583? Well, it started to move back up there. And for as much as it popped from 485, 490 here, it was moving up. It was moving up. And for the first test of that price, again, I still would expect resistance. Well, over time, it actually generated, in my eyes, a fair entry. Like once it re-broke over 583 here in a shorter time frame, it led to a nice reaction. It led to a good 60-cent move, basically. It was a hell of a nice pop. But again, it's got to keep showing higher lows. It's got to build support now off of $6. It's got to show a higher high here off of 625. If it's not going to do that over time, then the probability for this to pull back increases. And what I will say, which is the easy to say part based off pre-market, based off how illiquid this stock was in the pre-market hours, the big spread, how thin the orders were out there. If it's not going to make that big move higher, then look what happens. You have a nasty shake. So this is the type of shake that can really catch you off guard there at this time. I just lowered my seat automatically on the stream there. I probably caught that. No, but you could see at least it ended up making a lower high. And then, hey, if it's going to make a lower high, it's more prone to this type of reaction after. And you don't want to get stuck hoping and holding after, because obviously look at where it's at now. All right, so that was the drug trade to begin. We got a scratchy throat here also. Probably going to deal with that throughout the remainder of this trader's talk, so my apologies there in advance. But, drug was not a good trade really from the onset, right before the opening bell. But a few more of us were typing here in the chat board, the Tilray stock. And this is the one I really wanted to sink into, so I'd rather not waste more time, and I'd rather just jump right into this, right? All right, so who here remembers Tilray from last week? Anyone here trade Tilray just about a week ago? It ended up running up pretty nicely, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, basically in this time frame. Who here in our live trading room recalls that move? Maybe it took 10 cents, maybe it took 15 cents, 5 cents. You remember us at least putting this on the watch list, right? So with that said, well, hey, it was up early in pre-market hours. It was up like 8-9% in pre-market. So there is a chance for it to pop. Whatever news came out, it led to a good reaction, and perhaps that could lead to a higher high. Easy to say. It's still pushing up right now, right? All right. Well, I'm still in this trade right now from 250. Why am I still in this trade from 250? That is what we're going to answer right now. I mean, really, the first answer to it is sentiment. I'm led to believe this is going to squeeze up higher. I said that, though, last week. So for as well as we were doing on this stock, were there points where I gave up unrealized profits looking for more, and I didn't get it? Yes, 100%. Absolutely, folks. That's part of sentiment. You're not always going to make the perfect move at the perfect time. You might take a great trade, and if it doesn't continue to squeeze up the way that you want it to, well, you have to get out sooner than later. You have to take less of a profit, or maybe hell, in a worst case scenario event, which you never really want to have happen, if you waste a big unrealized profit, then worst thing that happens is you go break even, right? But either way, on this trade back from like a week ago, a week and a half ago, we were calling this out for a massive potential short squeeze. Brian chats me on the side here, and I always suggest for students to always ask me any questions that they get or that they have, and we can go over it on the side via private chat. And just the last couple of weeks, Brian and I were talking options. He was talking a couple of suggestions for me that worked out on DraftKings. He's been killing it there. But with that, though, I was telling him, like, hey, I see something on Tilray right now. And with how cheap the stock is, you could obviously just trade the stock, which is now what I'm doing. Last week, a week and a half ago, I was trading the options on it. So, let's go over this move now. I was just more inclined to just day trade today, so I didn't jump into my options trading platform this morning. Why am I so interested in Tilray? This is more a matter of history potentially repeating itself, but then B, what's called a cyclical pattern, right? And it's not to say that pot stocks are cyclical automatically, but here's just a little interesting pattern I noticed on my own doing, on my own time, my own studying. I went back on Tilray. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. This could be pretty interesting to show the team here. So follow along here. Back in October of 2000, or back in August of 2018, the stock exploded. It was recently off an IPO, and we were trading it back then. It was one of the most historic short squeezes that we've ever caught inside this room. So stock at the time went from like $20, $25 upwards as high as $300. That's not an inflated move. That's not off of like some reverse stock split. That was as real gets. Well, ended up coming back down, right? It was a short squeeze. It was a pop and drop and crashed much lower over time, down as low as like $2 here, basically, right? Well, it ended up making another short squeeze back in the beginning of 2021, right? It popped from, we'll say, 850-ish, topped off at 67. Well, that was a legitimate squeeze, as real as it gets. What's the time frame on that? From the squeeze back in August, September of 18 to this one. What's the time frame on that? Well, let's do a little math right now. So 18, 19 right there, 20 right here. We're talking, loosely speaking, 2.5 years, right? 2.5 years timeline from that squeeze to the second one. Same reaction, right? It made a big squeeze up. It ended up making a long upwick on that monthly candle, then came back down and broke much lower. Let's go 2.5 years from February of 21. So that's 2 years and then 6 months, right? Well, 2 years, that takes us to February of 23 automatically. And then 6 months, well, wait a second. That kind of leads us to right here. And I had noticed that on my own time, like when it first started popping last week, when Brian and I were talking options, it was just kind of stroke of good timing where I noticed it like in my own prep. I'm like, oh my goodness, wait a second, Brian, look at this for a second here. And I may have referenced it during the afternoon meeting on a given day, or maybe even in a trader's talk. Just between you and I forget what I have for breakfast each and every morning. So I can't exactly remember the exact quotes I used back last week in trader's talk. But we had referenced this squeeze at some point, the potential for it. So I'm not exactly holding my breath waiting for a move up to 10 or whatnot, but I think it's in a very good position to at least see if it could try and make a move at first. And so far, obviously, it had from a week and a half ago, but this morning pre-market ended up leading to a move up, early on. And that's where we can kind of dissect this trade now. So that's kind of why I'm still holding on to this position from the morning. What led to the actual entry? It's not like I just threw a dart on the wall and it landed, right? If this wasn't up 8-9% in pre-market, I would have no interest in this in this trade this morning. I would just look at the other stocks. I would look at Gorilla or Tupperware or Novavax or any of the others that we were kind of focused on. But this was up big. So I said, all right, let's just kind of see where our levels are. Let me ask us here, little pop quiz. We just brought it up like 10 minutes ago. So hey, if you're a student here, I want every one of us to write this answer right now. A little group participation right now. Where are we more likely to assume key levels on a stock like Tilray? What set of price levels are we expecting to find icebergs at? Ended up even running in the after hours last night. Ended up starting that move last night in the after hours. Especially for a cheap stock like this, right? 50-cent levels and whole numbers, both of them. So that includes 250, right? So you could even say dating back to the after hours last night, green, started to see a lot of green coming in at 250 there. Well, even early in the morning in pre-market, it was chipping away at it. Green. For every time it was nipping above it, green. Even after 8:30, it was disappointing in pre-market, but it nipped above it there. It showed even just a little bit more buying interest. Well, like we always like to ask, what happens if it keeps nipping at it, especially once the market opens up and there's a lot more traction and momentum volume altogether on a trade like this? Could it pop and drop? Absolutely. So on the first test of this level, I ended up holding off. And then once it rebroke it later on, I jumped back in. So it was a few minutes afterwards. But once it rebroke it was on these candles, one of these two, I jumped right in. I didn't wait. I jumped on the next break of it right here. I said, enough's enough. I'm going to look for this big move right from here. I shoot straight, folks. I'm not just going to tell you it moved up instantly right away after. It pulled back. It took a little while, and then it made that better reaction. It took about 5 or 6 minutes after I got in for it to make that more decisive reaction. And I was a little nervous as it pulled back here towards 250. So, there was the threat of me getting stopped out as my stop, I think it was at like 46 or 45. You don't want to really risk too much more than that. But just point being, even if it were to have taken me out, should it keep nipping at that level one more attempt? It's just weakening the resistance. And it's not just from the after hours yesterday or the pre-market this morning or here even. But let's even just go back to a week ago, a week and a half ago. For as much as it gapped up and ran here, well, essentially it held off 250. It was having a damn tough time trying to go higher there these days. This could have been a great day for me to, either get out on a nice runner there, or if I was looking for more, perhaps I wasted some unrealized profit and then gotten out a little bit lower as it dragged off there. But even on all of these days here, if I go into like an hourly chart and try and show it to you there, you're just seeing more and more interest for the times that it's nipping and gnawing above that price. So easy to say, but once it rebroke over 250 in the prime time hours of the morning here, 9:45, 9:50 in the morning. Let's ask us. We know that 10:30 is reversal time. 10:15 to 10:30. You know what? Let's actually even just say 10:15. Let's undershoot it. Let's be safe. I just got off a call with one of our students, Roberto, on this, and it was a great topic to go over for all of us here. Let's just say that reversal time is at 10:15 in the morning. When I jump in right here at, we'll say 9:45, 9:46, how much time do I have until 10:15? From 9:45, 9:46 in the morning, how much time do I have until 10:15 in the morning? The world is my oyster with 30 minutes, right? I have the world in the palm of my hand in that 30-minute time frame. And it's not to just kick my feet back up and assume it's going to run guaranteed, but where we teach you in class that primetime trading is from 9:35 until 10:30, and I jump in this trade at 9:45 in the morning, 9:46, we have so much time. We have so much time to look for that proverbial big move shortly after, right? Now, for a $2 stock, how big is big? Is 20 cents big? Is 50 cents big? Well, the faster it moves up in a shorter time frame, you do want to factor in that reversal time, that 10:15, 10:30. So, it's on such a beautiful trend off the lows. It's trending up very nicely. It makes a 20-cent move right away. How about this? Really quick question. I was going to ask a poll question inside our live trading room. I didn't have enough time to set it up. I started this workshop actually pretty late. No competition here, folks. The only person you're competing against is yourself. But for all of us here that either traded Tilray today or would be interested in trading Tilray, even if you did not, how many shares would you trade Tilray of, or how many shares actually did you trade Tilray of here? Let me know. No competition. The only person you're competing against is yourself. I can care less if someone's trading 50,000 shares of this or whatever. Just point being is that if you're doing 1,000 shares, if you're up 20 cents, that's a $200 profit in about 20 minutes time. Could I ask everyone here a following question right now? A little follow-up regardless of how many shares you're trading. How often are you making $200 profit in about 20 minutes time or less? If the answer is often, then perfect. Good for you. You're a consistently profitable day trader, likely. But if you are not often making $200 within 20 minutes time here, or ever really doing that at all, I would take the money and run a lot sooner than later, right? Much more often than not, I would just get out to get out. If you're up an abnormal amount of money that you're not normally up in that time frame, what are you doing? I would be more prone to getting out or taking half out at least and keeping half in. Now, if you're someone that has been making that money much more often than not, or at least half the amount of times, and the other half you're tightening your losses really well, you're still pretty profitable, I'd say. So the more that you're doing this, the more that you'll grow the confidence to hold more or lean into a trade here or there if you're not in already. But from 250, that was the first major level to work off of. What happened after 250? Were there, other levels to work off of from there? I didn't really show you bookmap outside of that 250 level. All right. So is there any resistance ahead here? Like kind of after it pushes off at 250, 260 here, above where my cursor is, right here. Is there any resistance? Is there an iceberg order out there ahead above where my cursor is? Ryan, Sam, Wayne, all saying 275, right? Right in the middle there of 76, 74. So 108,000 shares, right? And that popped out there when the market had opened up, really right away after the opening bell. So let's acknowledge that now as a resistance. Put a line at 275. And see what happens here. You know it moved up higher, of course, but looks like it stalled out there for a little while, didn't it? So as far as kind of following that next key resistance, it was 275. And hey, right around 10:15, leaning more towards 10:30, actually 3 minutes prior to 10:30, did this top off? It topped off at 275, went sideways. So hey, you could trust the cyber clock in this case here, this one trade, really right at 10:30, it ended up reversing or flattening out there ultimately. If you were to have gotten out earlier, that would still make a great trade, especially if you were getting in where you should have. And, when I say that where you should have, it doesn't mean that you should have been watching this one stock and that's it. Because if you were watching Chegg or, Gorilla or the other stocks that we had on the pre-market or the main morning watch list, like we were talking about Silo and Buru and, the others out there. Well, if those present good tradable opportunities, then follow those. If they have clear levels and easy to identify levels for you to work off of, and you're following that, and that's breaking through a big level on the way up, as long as you're making money, right? There's a lot of times where I'm not in on the big grand runner that's showing in the room, but I'm making clean money on another stock that's on our list that I'm calling out, that Margaret and Kathleen and Ryan and Sam are making money on too. So it's not like, oh, you should have been following Tilray and nothing else. No. But if you were following Tilray this morning, since it was on our list, and I know the majority of us are in the trading room by 8:30 Eastern time, well, you have a lot of time to prep and figure out where the key levels are more likely to be. And hell, when the market opens up at 9:30, the first 3 to 5 minutes, you're not trading anyway. So at that point, you're taking a last look at the order book, seeing where the icebergs are. So here, like 275, like we had said, first few minutes of the market open. So, okay, well, what's ahead here? Ooh, 90,000 here or so. You got 107,000 here. So in the event where this ends up breaking off at least from the 250 level, so, all right, unless if it tanks from 250 there coming up, there is a good chance for this to try and get closer to 75. Now, if you get out and already took the money and ran, is there another opportunity for an entry? Again, some flashing lights here. Is there another opportunity for an entry here? The answer is yes. It's easy to say yes, but the reason that it's yes at 275 is the same exact reason, carbon copy at 250. It's the literal same exact reason. It's just the next level, Ryan. Absolutely. So the first test of this key resistance, it broke above it and then it pulled back. So, I mean, more than ever, I'd be sitting on my hands, not expecting continuation. But the fact that it even nipped above it there, hey, let's just ask one more time, like we went through a week ago in class in time and sales. When it's breaking over that price, what color's popping up on the tape there? Ryan had that loaded. He knew where I was going with it. See, but hey, you know what? The more that you're like Ryan and a lot of us here, mind you, and the more that you're in our Traders Talk workshops and you're in our classes eventually and join us there, it sinks in a lot more, right? Green, right? And what do we nickname green as, Ryan and all of us here? Got to fix my light fixture here right now. I got some crappy weather outside right now. I get a lot of light from my window right now. I got some crappy weather here in Florida right now, so pardon me there. Buying. I get buying right now. So with that said, We started to see the initial buying here, even though it false broke it. Yeah, it broke above it and pulled back, but hey, there's actually some green there. And then again, it tried it one more time and it failed. It broke above it here and it failed. But the more times that it could nip that level in a shorter concentration, that's where I feel very bullish. That's where I feel more confident about that larger reaction shortly after. Are there times that I miss that pop because I'm more cautious and I'm more reserved with taking the entry? 1,000%. I mean, just yesterday, I think there was a trade on a stock in the afternoon. I was looking for a few tests of a breakout, just popped right over it right away. So we're not going to be perfect all the time, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to follow what happens more often than not. So, if you're going to ask me, do I have a percentage in my head as far as how often I see a false breakout here? I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a statistician, right? I'm a day trader. So with that, I'm more inclined to just say the more times it tests a key level in a shorter time frame, I do feel bullish. So if I turn over to Tilray, like let's just say we weren't doing traders talk here, and I turn over to Tilray and I'm not in it, and it already tested this 2 separate times already, and I see it kind of lingering underneath here again, you better believe I'm going to be following this, trying to see if it's going to make this next breakout again. Now, if it already tanked and dropped like way down lower to 250 at that point, then just move on to a different trade. Like earlier today, not to dig into this one as much, better short than anything. Hell, this NVAX trade was a really nice drop. But from earlier, there was a great chance for this to explode off of 850 and rip and run. Well, finally, it broke out here, and it was a great entry. And it ran up like 20 cents, 30 cents. That's a fair move for an $8 stock, but I wanted more. So, that's where if the wheels fall off on this trade, if the momentum dies off, you have to learn to get out ahead of time, or at worst, at the absolute worst, break even. Yes, you're going to lose all that unrealized profit, but better to get out break even than to, right? So, I don't like wasting profit like that, but that's like the ultimate worst case scenario for me after a stock has already made a big move and I'm in it. So like Tilray, yeah, there is a chance for this to pull back harder from 275 and not continue off of it, in which case I would have been likely to get out before Traders Talk started. But with that in mind, going back to our kind of like thesis, our cyclical thesis here of seeing this 2.5-year pattern of short squeeze breakouts on Tilray, we are literally here in August right now in the first week or two. So this is as good of a time to try and anticipate it, try and look for it. Again, we're not going to, hold our breath over the next 2 weeks waiting for this move if it's just going to snap back down to 250 and that's that. But if this holds here and fails to break lower in the next couple of hours and we come back here at 2:30 for the afternoon meeting and this is breaking new highs, I wouldn't be too surprised. So, at this stage, we'll just say level by level on this Tilray stock. All right. Now, really quick, if you're joining us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works, hey, we appreciate you joining us right now. But if you wanted to continue joining us and our students like Sam and Wayne and Rod and Margaret, Grant, and all of us just there, just scan that QR code right there. You'll have access to our afternoon meeting later on today, but all of our workshops included the afternoon audio commentary. Again, a little glitch right now on my computer right now. I don't know what just happened. Folks, I think we're running into a small technical issue right now live, even as I'm saying that here. Give me a split second. I think on my other computer, I have 2 computers right now. My computer I'm streaming off of just froze up. I got my web camera going right now. So actually, bear with us here for a quick moment. Really quick, Rich, I'm going to have you just share in the trading room. I'm going to take myself off this screen in the trading room. Rich, just post up there and, just share a stock for right now. Just give me a split second here, folks. I'm going to reboot, get the whole thing going. Just stand by. I'm going to keep the QR code open right now just on the stream. We have our trading room still up and running right now as usual, but my damn computer just gave me the blue screen of death. My other one here. Got to reboot. Got my stop set on Tilray, so I'm very happy about that. But give me a brief minute or two, folks. You never know what happens in these live streams. Give me a split second here. That's the first time that happened during Traders Talk, whether it be on stream or inside our live trading room. So I guess there's a first for everything, huh? Gives me a new errand to run over this upcoming weekend to go to the computer store and figure out what's happening. All right, so for all of us on the stream and inside the live trading room, just give me a brief moment here again. We just got knocked off for a split moment. Got to refresh my computer, refresh my screen. We'll be good to go in just a moment. Already got my platform back up and running here. So just give me a brief moment. We'll get my stuff sharing here in just a bit. Typically, I see one monitor go out every now and then, and it's like a little glitch, and we say, all right, no problem there. Then this one was both, and I knew right away. I'm like, oh, okay, we got to freeze up. So just give me T minus 60 seconds, folks. I think less, and then we'll be just good to go to continue. Appreciate everyone's patience thus far right away. Just one moment. And just like that, at least back up inside the live trading room, I should have my screen sharing again. It's on the Tilray trade. It's on the Tilray trade. So again, John, we're not making call outs right now, but we're going to be continuing our weekly workshop here in just uno momento. All right. So just bear with me for a split second. Appreciate it, bud. There we go. There we go. We are good to go, folks. Now, collectively, let me know if you can see my screen. Should be good to go from this point forward, right? Right? Should be good. There we go. Perfect. All right. So we were kind of finishing up Tilray anyway by kind of just saying, based off the cyclical pattern, basically 2.5-year stretch between these short squeezes, that we were looking for continuation heading into like really this week. So we'll see what happens just this afternoon. It's still holding here. Your next big resistance is up top at 3. Now, with that, though, we had a couple of different examples I wanted to go through here that students had sent over right from the main watch list, actually, here. A couple that we didn't have a chance to go through. So the silo trade from Jith, from email, he wanted me to go over. The drug trade, actually, we started off with. If you're with us just at the top of Traders Talk, we actually started off with by going over the drug trade. It was a dud, right? So we knew pretty quickly once that failed to really continue to hold off of 583, yanked the other way. But let's go over the others, though. Silo from this morning. It's a pretty similar reaction. Looks like before Traders Talk, this made like a flash pop, and then from there held. So again, one thing that we talked about before my computer crashed just for a second is that typically off of these 50-cent levels and whole numbers, you're more likely to find key icebergs. And with my computer refreshing here, I forgot to load up Bookmap. Bear with me a split second on level 4. But I think that you could see right away the end result here. For the first test of this price again since 8:30 in the morning, it's really taken as the first test just in general again here at this point. It's the first test of the regular session at this price for as much as it moved up from 250. Well, that first test of resistance, you would at least expect to hold or see hold. So with that, as I'm getting my Bookmap here up and loaded, you'll see that it ended up testing 3. It ended up hitting 3. It broke above it. But again, I'm not expecting continuation from that price, especially with it bouncing from 250 all the way up top there. Hey, if it blasts over 3 right there and runs up to 325, then maybe resistance can get flipped into support. But with this, though, on the first test, you're expecting for it to hold. And then, hey, maybe if it failed to, or maybe if it didn't snap down here, if it ended up just holding and showed better strength, then there's more of an opportunity for this to try and retest and go. But that's just not how the cookie crumbled, right? Stock ended up just kind of holding right under 3, tanked, and that was it. So that's kind of the easy story here on this more mid-morning move, but I didn't really go over the pre-market on this as much. So let's at least go back to the pre-market. Obviously stock ended up popping at 8:30 in the morning, but where were the key levels just prior to the opening bell? Well, basically right here at 299, right there at the whole number, $3. We'll just round up a penny and say. Now at this, it's not as easy on the eyes. It looks like a few points where you see some orange here, you see some orange here or there. If it's not as easy on the eyes, then I wouldn't be so keen to use that as a key level that I'd be risking thousands of dollars on. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm going to keep my faith in the 50 cent levels and certainly this whole number level like 3. And then from there, 350, 50 cent level on top. And that's really it. From the CVP column here, there really isn't like a huge spike that stands out a whole lot. Maybe, if anything, like 268. It builds up a little bit here prior to the open, but that's kind of reaching a little bit, little stretch right there. I guess I'll plot a line at 268 if anything, just to see. All right, so I guess there is an entry at this point. This is what catapults it up to $3 at this stage, but again, it's choppy at first off at 268 or whatever this is here. So it tries to hold it, but probably had a thin book at the time, like the drug stock. And if it's not going to really rip and run it right away, then it's going to make the drop and big move down. I guess if anything, easy to say in hindsight, but 268 built out as a level later on. It tested it again here. You'd expect resistance. But on the next test of it, it rebroke. If you're looking for a big move shortly after, it makes a fairly big move, at least up to 3. And then the same result ended up happening where it just broke down. So, again, Silo, it didn't really present too many easy to see levels on the heat map prior to the open. So if that's the case, then I wouldn't prioritize that stock over others. Like that's always going to be my answer. If you're looking at a stock from our list, and hey, it's on our list for a reason, mind you, but if that stock does not present clear levels for you to look at, and there's another stock on our list that does, and they're both like kind of similar volatility, perhaps, I'd rather you follow the one that has easier to see levels, right? So Jith was asking, was 285 a strong level? I didn't see it on Bookmap. That's typically going to be my answer, right? That's typically what we cover, like just with anyone on coaching calls or class mainly. There's like even nothing really there at 285 that makes it any. So again, just focus on the heat map. Focus mainly on the heat map here, 350, but that's kind of it. So I was even kind of forcing this out here at 268. It wasn't even like that big in the grand scheme of things, but again, just that was really all the move was there for, just kind of the break over that price, topped off at 3, pulled back. What was the other one? The Buru stock, same result, just even steadier on the way down. So wow, this thing exploded. Reminds me of the VTGN, right? And perhaps I could have even started Traders Talk this week off with the VTGN stock, right? That was the one from yesterday. That was that massive short squeeze, went from like $6 to like $60 or something like that. Well, when this stock is at 80 cents in pre-market, we're not calling it out because we're really focused on stocks above $1 to start. So, it pops from like 60 or 80 cents. And I don't know when we first called it out, but let's just in theory say it's when it hits $1. So from that very first point, I think right there at 8:13 in the morning, Rich first call out right there. I searched it right there. At 8:13, Rich wrote Buru trying to hold over $1. So of course, from that point, it ends up running up. But the more stock runs up like this, you got to wonder, when is the end? Where is the end going to be? If this is at 60 cents in pre-market and it's at 240, in about 30 minutes time, that's a 400% gain first off. And that's within about 30 or so minutes or less. So you definitely would be more reluctant to try and jump in as it's running parabolic, right? But for as much as it runs parabolic, perhaps this could build support over time again and keep going up higher. So let's focus more on like the move that we saw after the open, because hey, in pre-market here at 9 o'clock, we're not really trading. We should be getting out of our trades by 9 o'clock, 9:10 in the morning Eastern time. That's what I always say here anyway, right? I'm not trading pre-market by that time. Give the stock a chance to breathe and relax. Give yourself a chance to breathe and relax a little bit before the open, right? So really easy to say, but it made a small bounce but failed to go higher. And for as much as it was up percentage-wise, you do expect a little pullback at first as you're expected to see profit taking. Now, the stock ended up just continuing to drop off, but I'm going to load up Bookmap on this first, or in a moment. But first, actually, what I want to do, for this to run parabolic like this is the only instance that I'd be interested in using fibs, where you have a distinct bottom and top like this. So, on something like this, to see it go this high up, probably like 132 would be the first support I'd even think about. And then from there, even just like the 76.4, which lines up to be pretty close to $1 anyway. It's a few pennies off, like 106, 105. So what happens here? Well, right away at this line, it broke under and it broke back over 133 right on this candle. And I bring that to your attention because that actually could warrant a potential entry. But just like we teach here, and just like we teach in class every single week and month, when a stock is breaking through a big level, and if you're jumping in, you should be expecting a very significant reaction shortly after, a big move shortly after. If this is meant to be support, then you're getting a strong pop right back up. Well, it generated an entry, but if it's not going to make that big move up, it's going to make a big move. Don't hope and hold. So from there, of course, it broke lower. I'm going to finish Traders Talk off with a small little discussion just in a moment regarding the chat board and all of this. But I hope I remind myself of that by 12 o'clock. Now, with this, it pulls back a little bit more, right? This is already a dead duck anyway, because it dropped off so much at this point. We're after 10:30 or after 11 o'clock. And granted, if you're really fishing for a bounce, I mean, there could be a chance, but don't keep just trying to catch the falling knife. You know, if it doesn't bounce off of $1, then obviously this is your reaction afterwards. I actually do want to jump to the VTGN here really quickly, then back to Buddha. So VTGN was the crazy one back from yesterday, right? Went from like $6 or whatever it was, $2, even up as high as 60, right? Crazy, crazy move. You're hitting the lotto here if you had gotten even a small piece of the pie on this. And, I just say that because it's not often that we see a stock go from 2 to 60, right? Let alone from 2 to 10. So on this trade, I used fibs on it. And as it was pulling back before the opening bell, this is where I was saying, like, all right, well, I'll see at least $15 here. If it comes down to 15, maybe we'll talk. And of course, it pulled back there pretty quick. But as soon as it got there, well, unlike that last example using fib retracements here, it sliced right under the level, and that was it. There was like no looking back at that stage once it broke under that support line. So going back to Buru right there, actually could have been a small entry off that little fib at 132, but if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. You'd see it bounce off there pretty hard instead of just kind of consolidate, break. So, all right. So now with Bookmap, at least here, I mean, we went over this move pretty much in full. We know what happened to this thing, a tent, right? And, there was really zero entry on this trade. There was zero room for a bounce otherwise, right? There was room for like 1 or 2 entries, but it just never went. And something like this, it looks so ugly with the amount of times it got halted here. Let's just see. This is a really tough stock to pull data from right now. It's really having a tough time trying to like scrunch up the price axis on me right now. So it looks like right before the open, there could have been a small iceberg at 128, about 11,000 shares. There was an iceberg here at 89 cents as early as like 8:30 or 8:15 in the morning. That seems to be a pretty dark line, pretty bold orange line there. So even though this order got pulled from the book at 8:35 in the morning or so, that could still potentially be a level to watch. And, it's actually there right now at 90 cents, 89 cents. So watch, who knows? This is the bounce point now. We'll get a nice little 30-cent pop on it from 89 cents coming up. That'd be too funny if we come back to the afternoon meeting at 2:30 and we see this at like 125 or 130 or so. That'd be pretty funny. All right, folks. Hey, really quickly, I want to make sure I go through a small discussion just before we finish up. I just thought it was very useful and beneficial. I just kind of rattled it off the tongue to a student on a coaching call before. I said, wow, okay, this could actually be a great discussion for every one of us here, right? Okay, so aside from listening to my voice and perhaps seeing me on webcam every now and then, or if you're joining us in person at the on-site, of course, that would be as great of a chance to get to know myself and get to know Fausto and get to know your fellow students here. If you're not doing that, you don't really know anyone. And, with that, you don't really know everyone's experience level. You don't really know what everyone's really trading. I mean, let me ask us here. Do you see everyone posting all of their losses here in this trading room? Right? Come on. So where I'm getting to is this. You might look at a trade inside the trading room and you might see someone make a lot of money or a lot of cents per share. And I'm always looking at the entry points, right? And like I'm seeing like myself, I'm like, wow, holy shit, this person just held on for like a 75-cent loss and they're posting like a 40-cent win. And it's like, you know, if other people don't realize that, then they're just kind of looking at the post. They're looking at the profit and they're saying like, wow, great trade. Winning trades aren't always managed well. And losing trades on the flip side, this is where I'm getting to. This is ultimately my point here, because winning trades, as much as we are here to make money, and that's the end game, winning trades aren't always managed well, and winning trades aren't always like with great entries. But on the complete same side of that coin, not all losing trades are bad. Like, hey, if you take a 10-cent loss on a stock, don't beat yourself up too much over it. Or if you hear Josh take like a 10-cent loss, or Jith or Ryan or Wayne or Charles or Grant, if you post a 10-cent loss, I think a good idea is to study that and realize at least what happened after the loss, because every trade begins with the entry. I might have an A+ entry on a trade, but it was just there at the right place at the wrong time, right? So where I'm getting to is here, if you feel like you're taking a lot of losses, and obviously we're not going to be as jumpy and go to post a loss in the room, but it's to say, and I say that because not everyone is going to be as transparent. Like emotions are on the line. We don't force anyone to do that, and no one likes doing that. So I understand. But where I'm getting to is don't beat yourself up too much if you're taking a loss, like a singular loss. Every loss is different than the next and the last one. Hey, if you got your ass kicked because you didn't set your stop, well, of course, that's something we need to work on. But if you took an all-star entry on the trade, don't let that go unnoticed. Compliment yourself as much for that entry as you look to try and reinforce what you need to work on that led to the loss. Because, again, emotions weigh heavy in this game. And if you start seeing this person make this money, this person make that money in the room, you might look at that for just kind of the text that it's worth there and say, wow, that's a great trade. They're killing it. Oh, my God. You don't really know what's going on behind the scenes there. They might be getting their ass handed to them beforehand. So that's where I say try and take the emotion out of it as much as possible. And one of the ways to do that is to really dig deep into the full trade that you're taking. It's not just the fact that you lost money or the fact that you won money. It's the entry portion of it as well. For students, I coach one-on-one, which now at this point is like 80 to 85% of us live in this room. You know who you are right now if you're doing coaching with me. That's where I'm saying that when I'm going through trades with you one-on-one, even if I'm taking a loss live with you, I'm going to try and shrug it off and jump back into that same trade if it presents an opportunity later on, or jump into the next trade. Keep it moving. Because if I take a great trade and the stock just isn't going to make that push I want it to make, what am I going to do? Like blame myself and beat myself to death over it? Do I control Buru, a stock trading 65.7 million shares today? No. Not every stock makes a continued move up higher with good news, right? So, of course, we don't want to just trust the news, buy the news, all that stuff. But, you don't control this stock. I don't control this stock. What we do control are our positions, the money that we risk. So, with setting a stop, of course, we want to set our stops very tight. If you're, losing a lot of money because, you're not setting your stops tight enough, it's an issue we definitely need to attack quick. But from my side of things, it's not a hard issue to solve. But outside of that, it's to say, where are you getting in from? If you're taking trades and you're really not grasping like why you're losing money, and well, if you're setting your stops tight, well, perhaps it has to do with the entry point. Perhaps it has to do with getting in the trade. So, hey, for as repetitive as I am with, breaking through a big level on the way up and, expecting a big move shortly after, there's a reason I say these things, folks. It's because I am doing these things myself and I'm seeing great results within them. I'm certainly seeing students like Jith and Ryan and Charles and, Barbara and a lot of our students of note. Just yesterday, I think one of our students, Roseanne, mentioned to me she killed it on the VTGN trades. So a lot of us are doing this day to day. But I'm talking to you, but I'm also talking to the traders in our room that are kind of not as chatty, that are kind of lurking in the shadows, listening, of course. And they're the ones perhaps that might not be finding confidence in posting their trades or even trying to participate because they might find it overwhelming. There's a reason why I'm repetitive, folks. There's a reason why I say the same catchphrases each and every week here. There's more to it than these catchphrases, but that's where we start. That's what works out much more often than not. So, hey, if I take a great entry and set a tight stop and take a 5 or 6 cent loss, like I get stopped out within 30 seconds or 45 seconds of me entering, is it a bad trade? Should I beat myself up over it? No, not at all. Onward to the next, whether it be that same trade just down the line in a few minutes or so, or, hey, what else are we calling out? Is there a different trade that's moving out there that we can get our hands on? And you know what? Hey, for the students that are posting big trades and profits, all the more to them, because I want you to be studying their entry points and seeing, perhaps why they got in. They can't exactly post the explanation themselves. They're trading. But you could at least try and line up the entry price. Now, if you see that they're holding on for a fat loss before they flip a profit, I disagree with the risk management part. But, at least that way you can get a better idea for where you should be entering a position in terms of price. Sydney says here in the chat board, he learned the hard way. By the way, folks, going to go an extra few minutes after 12 o'clock with my computer crashing here. So my apologies just before. Sydney saying he learned the hard way. Getting in with a tight stop on a runner is usually a bad entry, so levels matter. I want to repeat that there. He says getting in with a tight stop on a runner is usually a bad entry, so levels do matter. No stop is even worse. Okay, so yeah, I mean, like if there is a stock already running, Sydney, how much is it up percentage-wise to start? Granted, we just saw VTGN in pre-market yesterday, but not every stock is going to be up like 3,000%, right? It's just, hey, if the stock is up 30% in the morning, we've seen stocks make bigger moves than 30, 31% on a given day. So for as much as Tilray is up percentage-wise, is it possible to still jump in on this runner? Tilray is not really a runner, I'd say. It's probably more of like a power walker, more of like a little jogger here, a little power walker. But you get my drift. Is it still possible to jump in on this trade as it's at the highs? Well, it's still holding here, and it's not up as much as we've seen some of these crazy runners in the past percentage-wise. So I'd feel more comfortable about it, right? Now, if I don't feel comfortable about jumping in on this trade as it's at the highs, and if it breaks higher without me, should I be vilified? Should I be vilified? Should I be shit on basically for not jumping in? No. Everyone has, a different personality. So if you're not as comfortable jumping in, then you know what? You're not going to lose a single dime that's already in your account by not jumping in. You know what I mean? It's not like you're losing money that's already in your account. If it runs without you, yes, you missed the opportunity. But hey, like we all know here inside our live trading room, the market's not permanently closing today, right? Or tomorrow or the next day. There's always going to be another day. And like we always say, there's always going to be another trade. If it's not Tilray here, let's jump right to Benzinga as we wrap up Traders Talk here in a moment. That's right. My computer reset. Got to go to Benzinga. I forgot about that part of it all. All right. Bear with me here for a split second. We'll get our scanner out here and we'll wrap up. Yeah, that Gorilla Trade's trying a little bit right now. CRDF, BCRX, Lucid. So we'll go through a couple different trades. Granted, hey, if you're not as keen to jump into this, then there could still be others. Again, Gorilla, we had on the morning watch list. It didn't completely tank yet. So if it hasn't tanked yet, is there a chance for this to really try and explode? Well, the more times it nips and gnaws at $2 here, and the VWAP, you got the VWAP at 204. So really, I'd say more of that. But, really, that's going to be a strong level to watch out for. The LCID trade, I know Rich called out earlier. Looks like that just popped back up briefly. So there's a little life left on that. I'm just pointing to the fact that there's always something else out there for you to get your hands on. Don't just jump into something. Don't just be impulsive. But if there is a stock that is moving up and it has easy to see levels, you're looking on Bookmap, most importantly, you're on level 4. Let me ask really quickly, not to go off on one more tangent, but who here has level 4? If you have level 4 Bookmap, whether it be the main version or the Thinkorswim version, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Just let me know if you have level 4. Everyone should have it. Charles, Xavier, Sydney, Barbara, John, Jith, Kathleen, Carla. Let me ask us here really quickly. Since you got Bookmap, do you feel that it's improved your trading? Have you felt like you've been able to lock in more or better profits using it? Okay. So I would say, simply put, if you're a regular member here joining us, look what literally every human is writing to me in the chat right now. Yes, significantly. Yes, yes, yes. I'm not just saying it to be a salesperson, folks, but for the people that I have seen inside this live trading room that don't have Bookmap yet, what are you waiting for? Just saying, I have not seen anyone from YouTube using it. No, they have like 40,000 subscribers on their YouTube account, but that's more just for generic Bookmap content, Jith. Everyone here knows that, like, in terms of Bookmap education, that's just what I'm here for. I'm definitely your main point of contact for Bookmap, Jith. That's what the coaching sessions, all of us have for. So that's where I could really help you out further. But I'm just pointing to the fact that if you have Bookmap, how's it been so far? And it looks like for all of us here, it's been pretty good, where it's significantly improved profits. If you haven't gotten it yet, I would strongly suggest it. But with saying that, at least here, okay, hey, if you're on Bookmap, is there an easy to see level? If you're looking at a stock and it's moving up a little bit, is there an easy to see level on Bookmap? If the answer is yes, then right away, then that's something I'd rather be following. That's something I'd want to try and keep an eye on. Right here, I wouldn't necessarily say there's too clear of a level. Really $2 as a whole number, I would assume for that to be a level. And then outside of that, you have the VWAP line in white right there. That's what we identified just before. Outside of that, though, looking at this one example here, this looks freaking tough to read. This looks very difficult to distinguish one clear level over another. So perhaps this might not be like the best stock to look at with that exactly in mind, but I think that you catch my drift with saying, if there is a price that is really showing well on the heat map, dark red line, it sticks out with a big order, then I'd rather follow that. All right, and then just really quickly, folks, going back to Tilray here again, it's just kind of diving off, so I didn't load Tilray back up on the heat map before we finish, at least. It's going to load up here. Just give it a second for the heat map part to populate. But, generally speaking, you would assume resistance to be at $3, whole number, right? 211,000 share iceberg on the ask sitting there. Give me a second here. I forgot to do this. There we go. I'd say that 3 is your major top on this trade. I think it's pretty clear to see that there is not really much of a resistance over 3. And then otherwise here, I think this is for now a pretty clear support. This wasn't really too clear beforehand, not much of a support until 266, until a 433,000 share order just popped up on the bid at 282. So this is definitely easier on the eyes in terms of where the support and resistance is. Hey, with it up 31% still in the day, it's actually still very tradable to try and anticipate another run before the afternoon finishes. All right, folks, but hey, we're going to finish up right now. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to private chat me inside our live trading room. I do have to get back to one of our students in regards to a question they had sent over just in a moment. Just wrote them back right now. But hey, feel free to private chat me if you have any questions. If you have any trades that you'd want to go over, just make sure that you send over your journal. You could do that through email. josh@c2trading.com is my email address. For all of us on social media, I hope that you folks enjoyed this workshop. We're going to do this pretty much every week now going forward. If you're interested in continuing the audio commentary throughout the remainder of today and throughout this week, just scan that QR code right there with your camera, with your phone, just to get access. You'll get access to all of our morning and afternoon meetings, Fausto in the morning, myself in the afternoon. Any questions that you got beforehand, though, I always like to post my email here to you at the end here on top. Josh at c2trading.com, though. But hey, we'll be back here, though, just for the afternoon meeting, just at 2:30 this afternoon. Talk to you soon. Take care.